Good morning. This is April Jackson of the Jackson Sewing Academy, and this is Saturday Live in Real Time. In these sessions, what we do is we will perform an alteration or demonstrate a technique, and it's all done in real time so that you, as someone who's looking to learn the trade, to learn more about sewing, will get a better understanding as to how much certain or how long certain tasks should take. I'm really excited about today's session. It's sort of like a part two from last week's session. Last week, we created our own custom mannequin, and I'm really hoping that some of my viewers have or at some point will create their mannequin. I did get a lot of great feedback. I had one of my students message me, and they were telling me that what their plan is, they actually have a dress form from the past. It is no longer their shape, so they are going to use the techniques that we demonstrated last week to beef her up so that she is the same shape and same contours of the student. So I'm excited to have that opportunity when she gets a chance to show us what that looks like. Today, I want to show you what my mannequin looks like now. At the end of our session, I put on a black covering, primarily because it's what fit my mannequin. I do love a black covering on my mannequin, but one of the things, a drawback when we have black, and you can kind of get that idea with even me wearing black, it's very challenging to see highlights and curves and shapes when something is on a black fabric. So I did convert to my beige. The original beige covering that I was trying to put on, we edited that part out. The reason it didn't fit my mannequin at that time was because I created the pattern for the beige cover using the original covering that came off of the smaller mannequin. And it really wasn't the expanse of the width of the material that was the challenge. It was more so even the length. The scuba material that I do have on my mannequin at this time doesn't have the same stretch, whether it's either horizontal or vertical, as the original fabric. So when I decided to put this scuba on, I had to recreate the pattern. I just had to make it a little bit wider and definitely longer so that it covered my mannequin. And I want to show you what we came up with. Leave in the comments, are you somebody who names their mannequin? I recall one of the messages that I had gotten on Facebook, somebody had referred to their old mannequin as a Missy. I've done that too. Some called them Dorothy. I'm just curious, do you give your mannequin a name? And if so, leave it in the comments. I'm curious to hear what that would be and if you do that. Oh, I just need to trim something I forgot. There we go. So this is my finished mannequin from last week's lesson with the tan scuba. I think she turned out really well. And what I chose to do, I did use that really thin tape, the one I'm not a big fan of when I was wearing it on myself. To keep it on the mannequin, I double layered it. So, and I used pins. I have some pins in strategic areas just so that this isn't going to move when I do some work using the mannequin. I put the tape along my bust, my waist, and my hip line, down my center front, my center back, and my armhole, and along my side seam. And you might notice that, there we go, my side seam doesn't always line up with the side seam of my material, and that's fine. It is much more imperative that this line is just straight up and down from your armhole. And one thing you will notice with this, when I cut the material for the cover, I did not accommodate for the bust being fuller, and that is why my seam on my material falls here, and it's just because I didn't have to do that. What's more important is this is my true side seam, and when I measure from this point across to this point, I get the halfway that I had on my measurements from last week. So if it was, I think it was 22 inches from front side to the other side, and when I did my measurements, that came out perfectly. Everything was falling into place just as we had wanted. I also did a nice neckline, and the reason I only did the extra detailing on the one side is because when we do draft a pattern or whether we create any kind of fashion, you only have to do the one side because most times it'll mirror the opposite side. So if I was drafting a pattern onto my dress form, let's say I had put all this detailing, the side seam and the armhole onto this side, because I made this, and it might not be 100% exactly mirrored and true, I wouldn't want to try and draft a pattern and assume that both sides are going to be the same. I'd rather draft my half of the pattern than we fold it in half and cut it, and then you get perfect lefts and right. So that's why I had done that. and you only need to have one side with this additional detailing on. But I'm very pleased with how she turned out. The scuba material just got such good body to it, and it just holds everything in just perfectly. I'm very happy with her. But today, I'm going to show you how using your own custom mannequin is going to help you with fitting some garments. How I use my mannequin: I like buying clothes from the secondhand store, and one of the reasons I like doing that, over the last few years, I've become very aware of all the mass-produced clothing. There's just so much material, so much clothing out there, and I began feeling a bit guilty buying new items. I would go to the secondhand store and I would find many garments and fabrics that are exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm starting to buy those. With that in mind, not everything's going to fit. I'll be going through the racks and I see a pattern or a color that catches my eye. I'll grab it, and depending on the style, depending on what it actually is, I may purchase it, even if it's too small or too big, because I will use that as a jumping off point to customize it for me. Now, when something is much bigger, you can always cut it down to your size and use that exact item. Generally, if something is too small, we can't do that. So what I do in that case is I start with the pattern that I have, the garment, and I do my increasing that I need, and then I'll use that as my pattern to recreate it from scratch. A great bonus with doing that method, there are a couple of reasons why that's great. First of all, if you've ever tried on something, it doesn't matter, a dress, a jacket, and you try it on and you love it, but it doesn't quite fit, and you know if it was your size, then you would definitely be, this is something you want. And especially if you got it at a secondhand store or at a store that you didn't pay a whole lot for. An example would be Urban Planet. I have purchased many garments from Urban Planet where I love the style, it fits me, and the size is great, but it might have only cost me like $10, under $20, sometimes even less, and it's not the greatest quality. What I do in that case is when I take that apart and use it as a pattern, I look at it as having a custom pattern that's going to fit me and I know I love for under $20, sometimes like $10. So that's a great bonus, because anyone who purchases ready-made patterns is aware that the pricing has increased a lot over the years, and over the last couple of years, it's become increasingly more challenging to purchase those patterns. There are a number of patterns online that you can download and you piece all your papers together, and yes, that's great. But another thing I have found with patterns that are already designed by somebody and put together, I look at the garment on the picture, love it, know it's going to fit me, buy my size, do everything right. But if the pattern hasn't been cut properly in the design stage, then I try it on and it doesn't look anything like it should. When I buy a piece of clothing, whether it's at a secondhand store or it's at a discount, I try it on and I know it's going to fit me, then there's no other guesswork. I know that pattern is perfect. I'm going to reconstruct it. And that's one of the bonuses that I use my mannequin for, because that helps me with that stage. So let's start at the beginning. What I'm going to do is I would like to show you taking a garment that is really big, and we are going to cut it down by using our mannequin. Going through the secondhand store like I do, this time in the men's section, I was looking for some shirts for a man, and this item caught my eye. I like sportswear, especially if it's very classic. And for me, I like lighter fabrics. Anything that's too heavy just makes me feel really big on top. I love the idea that this has this zipper detailing here, which helps elongate and open up to my neckline, which also helps me not feel so big on top. So when I saw this, I thought I had to have it. Now, it is, I took my label out. It's a man's, and I'm pretty sure it's a 2XL, plenty big. I'm going to make this so it's going to fit me and it's going to look good. To give you an example, I have also done this exact technique. Giant Tiger, looking through their dresses, it was a women's XL or triple XL, something like that, and I purchased it, just took it in using my mannequin, and that dress, I think I got about 10 years of wear out of it. Let's dress Missy here. We'll call her Missy because I always call mine Missy. Do that up just a little bit, and this is where we start. Pretty big, long sleeves. There's no way I would wear this just as is. We are going to customize this so it fits my curves. It is meant to have a little bit of ease, but not this much. So we can see the armhole here. We have lots in there. Currently, there is no shoulder seam, and depending on how these wrinkles fall, we might add a little bit of a shoulder dart to eliminate that. because bringing this up helps do that. What you have to remember is this particular garment was originally made for a man's body, so and a bigger man, so they would have the broader shoulders, a broader chest. That's why we have all this excess material in here. I'm going to customize it, but I also want it, just when I wear it, I want it to look more feminine, not really boxy. So if we need to do that, we will do that. The first thing we're going to do is I want to put some pins down the front, center back, and even on the shoulders. I want everything to stay in place. So let's start with that. Let's actually do this right up for now. That will help keep the symmetry. And we're going to put a pin at the neckline. This is where that beautiful pinnable mannequin comes in handy. And just straight down. The reason I'm doing this is I'm going to show you two methods. The first method is just if we decide to pin this out, and if we can definitely do the alteration, just pinning it out, serging, and keeping both the fronts and the backs the same without accommodating a fuller bust. But what I also want to do is I want to show you how I would actually kind of cut this up and use the design lines that are on my mannequin to help give me that great fit. So doing this, adding some pins right down the middle, this is going to prevent me from pulling too much on one side and not the other. It's going to help keep everything nice and straight. We are definitely going to be shortening this. I will address the length after. So I've got that down just loosely into here so that this doesn't pull. I'm going to do the same at the back. There we go, get that up there. Put some pins in. And there. So we have our center back and our center front secured. For the first run, what we're going to do before, I'm not going to do any cutting. I'm just going to do some pinning first. Also, having this pinned in place allows me to pin each side separately. I'm not concerned that I'm going to be pulling so much over out of one side that it's going to affect the other. So one side's going to be too wide or not wide enough. I'm going to just pinch. I'm folding it right on the side seam. And right now, my fullest part is my bust and my hip. So let's say even at my hip, let's pull this in. I'm making sure that's not getting too tight in the back here. And I want just a little bit there, but I want to show you what it's doing here at the back. Even with that little bit, we have a lot of fullness in the front. The back is already right smooth and taut. So I'm not going to take any more. I'm just going to put my pin in straight up and down right there. So we have the pin straight up and down, just like that, holding that in. It simulates our seam. I will continue that down. It's not my straightest pinning job. Let's straighten that up a little bit. I generally don't have somebody available to help me when I'm trying on clothing. That is why I just love my mannequin, because she's always there. Another thing I thought of today when I was coming to work, and I want to run this idea by you. Have you ever come across somebody who might have had an outfit or and they're the same size of you, regardless of your shape? You see that person and they're an identical size and shape, and you look at them and you think, wow, that looks great. I wish I could look like that. And yet they're the same size as you are. We tend to always be more favorable when we're looking at somebody else. And I find when I put something on my mannequin and I like it on my mannequin, she's the exact replica of me. And I think it's from me looking and assuming it's somebody else that I like that. And I just think it's kind of interesting because I'll put something on my mannequin and I absolutely love it. And then when I try it on, I feel that great too, because I know it fits me and it's the same. So maybe it's that same little scenario where we tend to always like things on other people as opposed to ourselves. But that just could be something, could be all in my head, who knows. Another reason why I also like pinning down my center, it gives me the opportunity to adjust things differently on each side without affecting the other side. And if you want to try something a little different from one to the other and compare it, it gives you that opportunity. So what's happening now, something that happens a lot to me when I'm wearing clothing, and I have seen posts where people comment on, they question how to get rid of it, and that's this pulling here. Right now, this fits beautifully across the bust. It's nice and fitted. We have a little bit of ease in here, and that's great because we're going to probably tuck that in. We do want a little bit of blousing. It's perfect up here. If we hold this, what's happening now is that this is the weight of the material is pulling that down. So if we, hold that into place like this, that's looking good. But we still have too much in here, and I don't like that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pin my material like this so we don't have that pulling. What that is doing, when a garment is being designed, they will have the students sew on their design lines onto their material. You will have, your lines going across horizontal and then the ones up and down. And they want to make sure that while you're doing your design, things aren't pulling and things are staying straight. And because of the weight of the material is pulling this down right now, that's what's causing those lines. I'm going to put a pin in there to hold it to maintain those design lines. Because now it gives me a better visual. This is fine. This is hanging nice and straight from here. Now what I want to do is I want to get rid of those lines. And what's happening is there's just more material in this than from the shoulder to this point. So how I'm going to get rid of that is by raising up my shoulder. As we were making our mannequin, I think I mentioned that making sure our garments fit in our horizontal points is one of the reasons why making something from scratch, we want to make sure we know the distance from our bust point to our waist and shoulder, because this is a more challenging area to take to get the look we want, but it's not impossible. Even this garment here, though there is no seam at this point, I'm just going to make a dart or type of seam that will look like it's meant to be. I'm going to pin this up, and you can see how as I pin this up, it's taking out some of those wrinkles. Let me see. I can even go a little bit more. I just don't want to totally eliminate my design line here. So let me see. Just keep pulling until I get to where I want. So I don't mind having a few because, realistically, our bodies aren't perfectly straight. We're not meant to be, cardboard boxes or flat. There, and that's there. So what I'm doing too, I'm going to undo this pin here, but I'm getting rid of the wrinkles back here too. You can see how now this is laying smooth. And that's just my preference. If you don't mind those, if you love those, just leave them. But that's my preference. Yes, I just like having that smooth, no lines, which is fine. I'm going to pin. Oh dear, the pins are so heavy. Why can't I keep them in my hands? What I might do, what I will do, instead of putting a seam in here at the top of the shoulder, we have a design line, the armhole seam here. Whatever I am pinning out here, I'm actually going to take from that area, and that will keep my shoulder nice and smooth without having any design lines that aren't meant to be there. I want you to start looking at garments like that, very simplistically. Nothing's really that complicated. Don't make it any more complicated than what you need. There, I like that, because then when this is on, I've got a nice smooth line. What I need to do now is I need to figure out how close I want my armhole. This does have some extra room, and I don't necessarily want this right up, like this top is right close to my body. I don't want this that close. I'm just going to pin right to the body and then ease out a couple of inches. All right, get this in here. Simulate my side seams. There. And remember, this and this, it's from my pins now. That distance. It's not the old, it's where my pins are from here to here. Let me see, there. Okay, I might actually bring that down a little bit. It's always better to not take as much, so you can take more, as opposed to taking too much and then you can't do anything else. All right, that's good there. I'll put a pin in here just for myself to see. Whatever I have pinned here, I'm going to release the shoulder seam here. I'm going to need to release some seams or cut open some of the material anyways to do this sewing. That it's not going to be an issue, and then just going to move everything back, and I'm going to maintain the same shape here. What I will do is, when all is said and done, when I get this open, I'm going to lay out this seam from the shoulder to my underarm and duplicate it on a piece of paper. Then once I know how much I'm cutting, I'm going to copy that so I can maintain that same line, so you don't have to try and remember what it looked like. But this is the first side, just with this pinning, and see, we're going to get the nice line that we want. I wanted to talk about, if you were doing this for a client, how much would you charge for this? And that all depends on your client, how much they want to spend. It's always going to be your time, because time is money. And if they brought you something like this and requested that you do exactly what we're doing, first of all, you're going to have to do the pinning aspect. Don't stick pins in your clients. Do not do that. But you are going to need to pin your client and give them an idea as to what it would look like, what it's going to look like when it's going to fit them, so you can get the A-OK in the first place. Then you're going to need to do a quick estimate. How long is it going to take you to do this alteration? If you were going to just put a seam down this area, it's not going to take you as long, but I wouldn't recommend that. It's still going to look like a half-assed job. I would always rather give my client the full price, the proper price of doing the job right, and have them go away than the cheap price to kind of cut corners, because it's always going to reflect back on you. So with that in mind, I'm going to estimate, when opening up that, undo that, it's going to take you at least an hour to do this, 1 hour guaranteed. You can even do an hour and 15 minutes. So at that point, what you're going to do is you are going to take a look at how much you charge per hour. Some studios, we're looking at $60 an hour. Sometimes it's going to be even more than that. So this alteration, I would say, is going to be at least $80. What your client has to decide, is this alteration worth it for them? For me, well, I'm not going to pay somebody to do it because I'm going to do it myself. I wouldn't pay anyone for it. I'm just cheap like that. But for a client and for this top, I will get a lot of wear out of this. I will be wearing this in the winter and in the summer when it's a little cooler because it is a little lighter, and I just love the lines of it. I know I'm going to get a lot of wear out of it. So for me, it would definitely be worth it. It's good quality. That's what's important. And I definitely know I'm going to get wear. So I would think it's worth it, but it's totally up to your client. Our first side is done, and I'm going to leave it as is. I will be tapering my sleeve off where our pins are here. We're going to be tapering off to nothing. And this sleeve is definitely much too long for me. I will be adjusting my sleeve length by moving up my cuff. And I'm not exactly sure the exact style I'm doing, but I will be doing that. So that's this first part pinned. What I want to do next is I want to show you the other side, but instead of pinning half and half, I'm going to cut up the middle of the side seam, and I'm going to pin my top using my side seam as a guide. Good, I got the right side. I wanted to make sure I had the proper side. So I'm going to switch this over to this side. So I want to make sure you can see. We are going to do similar. I may be pulling this up, but we'll look at that in just a second. Let's get my pins, and actually I'm going to cut her up first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right up my side seam and open this right up. Don't be afraid. I'm not going to cut right down to my sleeve, just up through here. I'm going to have to stick that up. I'm cutting up their side seam, nothing fancy. Make sure I'm not cutting the arm off. Wouldn't be good. This way I can show you why I'm doing this. Because my bust is fuller than my back, I want to make sure my top is like that. Just cutting up through the sleeve a bit, just through the sleeve bottom seam. Okay, I think that's good. All right, let's see what we got. So now let's pin up I'm going to pin our sleeve up so it's out of the way, but not so it's distorting our material. Just get this up and out so she's not falling into our way. So now I want us to be able to look at our design lines here. And first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how the other side actually was, but show you how it looks like. I wanted you to see a little bit more too, so I'm not covering up my lines. We have our top pinned down, and remember I said parallel? That's why I want to make sure this isn't just falling doing that. And our hemline is parallel. If we smooth this over, so it's right flush with my body, but we need a little bit of ease, and I'm going to flip this under to simulate a side seam. That's what I'm doing with this. Showing you another way how we can use our pattern or dress form for custom draping. There, still nice and straight, right there. Put another pin in, because my goal is to have my front having that extra in the bust area. And you can see, while we're keeping everything straight here, and we want a little bit of ease, we can see that I'm pushing the material up, which is what we did on that other shoulder to keep this hanging nice and straight. Just going to flip this under a little, and I'll show you what this looks like on the side seam once I get there. Put a pin in here. What I'm doing here, imagine there's a design line straight parallel here. I want to keep everything straight up and down without pulling, and get that pin in. There we go. I just had a dud pin. So can we see how this is going now? We're keeping that nice and smooth here. And if I flip this back, you can see that this is my front. And if that's where my side seam is, I like that. I have a little bit of ease still, and that's good. Because I just don't like anything being too much excess material. So that's perfect. I still have that ease in there. And like where we raised up our shoulder, we're doing that right now. Yes, I will be raising this up now to eliminate that area. So I will do similar to what we did on the other side. Lifting that up to get rid of that excess material right there. So we're going to raise up our shoulder the same way we did on the other side. We're doing the same measurements as the opposite side, but we're just doing it in a different steps. And there. And see, we've brought that up now, and we've gotten rid of a lot of that extra billowing that was on the side. All right. I want to show you here, we have my bust line, but we also have my armhole right there. I'm not concerned. I'm not going to make like a really shaped armhole. I am going to simulate the same size, like the same measurements as the side we pinned. But right now, I just need to know where my bust is here and where my side seam is going to end and the fullness that we're going to have in there. Let's move our arm out of the way, tuck her back up here. And now I'm going to do the same, but with my back. My arm's out of the way, and now I'm going to do the same with my back piece. I'm going to pull this, flip it around. I am not concerned that my seams now are not lining up. I don't know if I'll have to put something behind my hand even. See? Because we pulled up the front, that's not an issue because I need to shorten this anyways. So I'm not concerned about that. My concern is mainly to make sure now that I have my design lines. You see how it's nice and parallel here? That's what I need, is just to pull that over and line up my side seam. I'm going to give myself a little bit more ease in the back here. One of the things I really hate is when I do have a top that's being tucked in and there's just so much material that I have to tuck into my dress pant. Kind of annoying. And then here, I'm going to take out my center pieces now, the center ones, because it's kind of giving me drag lines. Don't need that. There, need some ease, a little bit of ease, so it's hanging down nice. And we're going to keep folding. And that at my waist, so it's in there. And how much here? Like that. Trying to see where I'm at with my sleeve here. Nice. And see, we just have it nice and smooth in here. We have a little bit of ease. Still have a little bit of ease I can pinch out here, and that's good because we don't want it right straight tight. But I love how nice and smooth that looks. That just, for me, is the epitome of a really well-fitting top, especially for someone who has bigger bust. I hate all that gaping and all the pulling. All right, very nice, very nice. When we do our design and cut it out, I will actually use this particular side because I know that now this distance is going to be more due to my bust, but I'll just leave my pins on the other side for now. Let's see where we're at. I have that area pinned there. I've got my shoulder pinned up, and right now I'm at the same point as we were on this side. So get that back in there. How I'm going to transfer these lines, I will use chalk, grab some of our wax chalk, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my chalk to put a mark where I have my front section pinned to the side seam. Okay, oh, don't touch my tape. I got to figure out a better tape than that. But for now, she's good. I have lots of clothes I plan on using this for. Okay, I want to know where I'm going to put a mark where my bust line is. My reason being, my armhole isn't going to come right up to my armhole. This one ends about my bust line and starts flaring out. So this now will be in line with my bust. So I know too that my side seam is going to come up here and I'm going to start flaring out my sleeve. Okay, let's get some chalk marks. There to there. Make sure that's on all there. Perfect, perfect. All right, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to take this off, and we're not going to go through all the steps on these projects exactly how to do this particular alteration. We can always follow that up, or I'll add those steps in on the website. But for now, my main goal is showing you how we're using the mannequin to get the custom shape. I want to show you something that I am noticing on my dress form. Because we are raising up our shoulders here, I'm getting some extra puckering up here with the collar, and that's normal because I'm raising the shoulders and the collar's up here. It only stands to reason that this is obviously longer than my body. So when I undo my collar to do the alteration for the shoulder and get this extra out, I'm going to reposition this when I put it back on. And an easy way to do that is just move your collar down. See how nice and smooth that is there? That excess there. I want to make sure that little shark thing stays in there. Perfect. I'm just going to put a piece of chalk where that base is, and I will be reshaping, and my collar, when it puts back on, will be right there. So this top, when it is on, it's going to look perfect. It's going to be so custom. I can't wait. I think she is going to be very stylish. Right now, I'm going to take out my pins, and, well, before I do that, I want to address my hem. You see, we brought that up, and that's not too bad. Remember, when we did our measurements for the mannequin, the distance from my shoulder to here is basically the mannequin. This is a little long. I think it'd be too much to tuck in. We can always see too, my waist is right here, so we'd be tucking in that much. It's a little much. So what I'm going to do is make my top, that would be about that long. I'm basically flipping up the old hem. I'm going to put some chalk there, so I know. And I'll get my side seams all done. Then I'll have to take out this old hem. I hate when that happens. but otherwise we are going to do the side seams, then we will cut this straight across parallel, and we will have our new hemline. Nothing fancy, but this is going to be very cool when it's done. I'm looking forward to when I can wear this. So whether it's the men's clothing or whether it's women's, don't rule out something that is bigger. When you start with something like this, it saves you so much time making a custom outfit. It's pretty much together for you. You have the material. You don't have to do anything else. And starting from scratch, sometimes I think, why? When I can do this. Before I go any further, you want to make sure you know where this is going to end here. Just something like that. So I'm going to put some chalk. It doesn't have to be anything. You don't have to write notes, as long as you know that that's where that goes. Because when I put all this together, I need to know that this is where that's going to start. Otherwise, I'm not going to get the proper fit. I wanted to show you something I just thought of too. The reason this is pulling as it is because I am pinning the front and the back together, and that's why we're not getting that. We're getting this a lot of excess pulling in here, because when our front fits properly and everything's in place here, it's that much shorter because of our bust. So that's 2 inches, 2.25. So just pinning the side seam like this creates a lot of pulling, and it's just pulling down, see? Whereas on this side, we didn't have that at all because we had everything pinned, fitting the body proper. Just something else I noticed. What I'm going to do with my shoulder, I don't necessarily want to leave my pins in. I have a habit of hurting myself. I'm going to put a chuck here on the front where the pins are, and do the same on the back. I am not going to pin or mark both shoulders unless you have, an obvious difference. That's not necessary, just the amount, because what I'm going to do when it's time, I'll measure from this point to this point, and let's say it's 4 inches, then I'm going to take 4 inches off of this back seam so that everything's going to come like that, and it's going to fit nice. I can take out my pins from this side because I don't really need it now. I'm not pinning both front and back equally. If your front and your backs are even, like your bust measurements and your waist and hips, then you don't have to do everything so custom like this. But because it just doesn't look right on me because of the difference, I choose to do that way. All right, undo here. I got that there. Yeah, there. Okay, perfect. I like when I undo this because I'm going to be able to show you what some of the new lines look like. Pins are out, except for one somewhere. Okay, take this up and off. Set Missy aside for a second. Oh, her tape's not staying the way I liked. It's okay, I'll figure you out. I considered using markers. My only drawback with markers is I don't like that it bleeds, so I will have to figure something else out for this. I want to show you what these lines are looking like now. Here's my side. This is the side that we will be using, and you can see now that's going to be my new side seam where the chalk is. You can see this side, yeah, that side. I want to open that up so you can see where the chalk is there. You can see it a little bit better on the back. Oh dear, that's why I don't like using black sometimes. That's going to be my new side seam. All right, so this is pinned and ready for the next step. What I want to show you next is the reverse of this. We are going to take something that's too small, and we are going to cut and slash the actual material of the dress. So don't use something you don't want cut and slashed, and expand it where we need so we can get the pattern that we want. Okay, I'm sure, well, maybe not. If you have ever heard in design, somebody's making a pattern, this side, okay. Somebody's making a pattern, or you purchase a pattern that's already made, and you might hear the term, you need to do a full bust expansion or a full bust adjustment, or sometimes the reverse of that, take in the full bust. It's easier to see when we do the expansion. And the reason we need that is directly because of the fullness of the bust compared to the overall circumference. When we have a garment on, and let's say with this garment, imagine a tube, just a plain old stretch tube. And this stretch tube is put onto your body because the front was more fullness here. So the distance from the side seam over to the other side is more. You're going to need to expand your pattern in your bust area to accommodate for that. One way we can do that is by extending out your armhole. But what that does is it just makes the arm, your seam come back further. It doesn't necessarily open up the bust area. We want our side seams to remain on our side seam. Sometimes too, taking in the armhole that way or expanding it, then we have to make the sleeve bigger. We don't need a bigger sleeve. We need more material to cover the bust. That's what this is going to show. When I first did this particular technique, I loved it because it really helped me understand what a full bust expansion or adjustment, how it actually works with paper and pattern. So now occasionally I'll have a paper pattern and I know the bust doesn't fit. I will do cut and slash my paper to get the full bust expansion. And so I'm getting the fullness I need in my bust. Let me show you my dress. Once again, the secondhand store. I love stripes and I absolutely loved this dress. I also love stretch. Now, when I tried this dress on at the store and it was clearly way too small, but like I said, I think I got this for like $7.98. So for me, that is a cheap pattern. I tried it on, so I know which areas fit. And I know I love it when I wear this. I just love it. So what I just need is to make it fit me. Let's put this on, everything where we need, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do this. Isn't she pretty? Except for in here, that looks good, but I don't want to be that risque. No. Whenever we're trying something on your custom mannequin, you definitely want to make sure everything's in place. I want to make sure my center back seam is in place, my collar's falling where I need. Let's get that open. Now, across my back, it is pretty much my back width. The main thing I want to make sure is that it's not my width just because I've stretched it out too much. I will do a measurement. Let's do that first and see. I need 15.5. So this is still a little narrow in my back. So I will expand that just a little bit too. I just don't want it too tight. And one thing I don't like is I don't like that if it's too tight in my armhole either. Right now, this particular armhole comes right up. You can see it'd be like right here. I want a little bit more ease than that. Not so much that I'm going to get this gaping in here, but just a little bit more ease. So I will probably make my armhole a little bit bigger when all is said and done. And yes, we are going to be fixing this. I'm happy with my length. She's good. Yes. And my collar's fine. Everything's fine with my collar. So let's start at the back first. Let's open up our back just a little bit to give us a bit more ease. And then we will work our way down. Adding the extra ease in might add a little bit. I will add a little bit more also in the buttock section, just because you see how the dress right now is sinking in. I don't want it doing that on me either. That's where it's kind of tricky with stretch. Yes, I can get this on, it'll fit, but you want it to still have that stretch, but not looking so much like a sausage. So that's why you want to have still a good fit, nice and smooth. No, with knit, I don't want to have a lot of excess because it's knit, so I want it to fit nice. But yeah, we don't want it too tight. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to give myself some ease through the back. I don't need a whole lot. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little bit just through the center back. My side seams, yes. So I want to make sure my side seams are in the right place, straight up and down, because that's going to make a big difference. I actually might put pins down my sides just to make sure everything stays in place. And the reason being is I don't want to have too much in one and not the other. It's almost opposite of what we did with the first garment where we pinned down the center front and center back. I need to make sure that our side seams are totally in line, and we will do that by putting in some pins. I actually found the exact same material or same design, so I'm really looking forward to when I can get this made. Some down the side, same for here. There we go. There. All right. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the center back a bit to give us some ease through here. And how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to cut right up the center back. Not using this dress now. Just straight up and down. You can see how that's releasing and giving me more space in here. Make sure I don't cut my tape. Yeah, I got to figure out something better. I'll figure out something better than that crappy tape. One thing to keep in mind, this is opening up a lot, and that's okay. But remember, I do want a little bit of give, so I'm actually going to probably give that a little bit of a pull when I pin that back into place. But it gives you an idea as to how tight this really is. It's like breathing room. I'm not going right up to my collar because I don't want to expand my shoulders up there. Just like that. What I'm going to do, like I said, is I want to kind of give this a little bit of a pull, just a bit, and I'm going to pin that right there. And that's where I'm going to get that extra width when my pattern's done. Pull that over just a little. That little popping you hear, that's my the saran wrap that we have in our dress form. Whenever we're recreating pattern from a ready-made garment, you need to always make sure you know that the piece you're duplicating, how much stretch it has, vertical and horizontal, compared to the one that you're going to be using, because this material is very light, and actually I'll explain to you why it actually is a little stretchier, but it does have a lot of horizontal and vertical stretch. So I need to make sure that in order to get the same look, I need to find a material that has similar. I would not be making this out of a woven that has no stretch. This material has a little bit of extra give because even though it's a knit, it's actually cut on the bias in order to have our stripes going in this direction, and that actually gives your material a little extra give. So now you can see how my back is hanging nice and straight, and that's what you want. You don't want it cupping under your butt. Maybe in the old days we had it like that, or if you're, I don't know, Heather Locklear, maybe that's how you wear your clothing to work, but not me, thank you. So I'm going to just adjust this a little here. So now you're probably wondering, what am I going to do with this big gaping area? How am I going to fill this in? And this is where we're going to use some tape. I first want to apologize from last week. I did not realize that pulling the tape with my mic right there was so loud. I'm going to stand back when I do it today so that I'm not hurting our ears with all that tape. I'm going to put a pin in here. I'm not going to do it with my tape yet, though. We'll do that after, but we will be adding tape, and we probably will have to pin a little bit of our tape, otherwise it may pull apart, but we're going to fill this in with some tape. I find that's the easiest method. You can try and put some extra material in there, but I just find the taping method is just going to give me that little extra fill in. But that is perfect now in our back. I don't have to do anything else. Now we're going to address our front. I am very happy with how low this goes. For me, it's just the fact that it is much too small in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over now. Actually, I'll try and do it up. These buttons don't stay up too well. One, not bad. Yeah, okay. If it does up, then you can do them. Oh no, she came undone. So I'm going to overlap them and pin them because the buttons aren't going to stay up. Just simulate the buttons. Now, I'm going to do this right up to the top, and I probably won't wear it this way, but if I'm going to cut and slash and this is going to open out, I'm going to want to have the appropriate amount up here, opened out. If I were to just stop at that point, then it'd still be too tight in my shoulders, and I don't want that. I'm going to do this all the way up to simulate it being done up. And this is going to give you an idea to let you know that yes, even though we have this done up, it's still very too tight. So it's still hanging not too bad down here. I'm not concerned about doing a lot of opening in the lower bodice area. I will a little because it's still cupping a little, but because our backs are fuller, this is even on our side seam, and this is hanging nicely now. We can see that most of the fullness is in the back. So that's another reason why I want to make sure I'm opening up that area, because that's where we need the fullness. If we were to open up in both the front, then we're going to have a lot of fullness in here, and it's not going to hang as straight as we like. I'm going to do both sides for you. The reason being, with the way that this is cut on diagonally and not fold it right in half, we normally wouldn't put it on our material and fold our material in half, because then we wouldn't get the right layout. So because I am going to cut mine like this too, I will cut and slash both separately, and then I will cut out my pattern that way. Let's do this. I'm going to cut directly up and down through the bust point, center of the shoulder, through the bust point, and straight down. And this is where like a princess seam would be. And I'm going to end my cut probably just right here. So this would be like right here on me. I'm not going to necessarily draw that myself. Keep hitting my tape. And I'm going to do that for both sides, I guess. Probably should have pinned the center then. Yes, I'm going to have to pin the center. My reason being is that otherwise this is going to open up, and all that space is going to accommodate both sides. All right, so I want to make sure I keep my center line, and I have just half open here and half open here. I hope that makes sense. Put some pins in to hold that in place. If you were doing this particular pattern and you didn't have a design like this, then you could just get away with doing half of the dress. And when we cut out the front panel, we are going to cut it on the fold, but I want to keep this exact design. So, all right, there we go. I'm going to do the same here, putting my pins right in the center, because when I cut the bust here, I want to make sure that it's not pulling, reacting from the other side. I want it to be independent of each other. So I'm just sticking my pins right down inside. So now I'm going to keep cutting straight up. and now up to my shoulder, and that will simulate our shoulder seam. Now what we need to do, our bust is full this way, but it's also fuller here, and we're going to accommodate that too. So this next little snip will be right at our bust point here, straight across, and you'll see where that comes into play. And we're going to do the same across here. I'm going to pull this out and cut straight across on my bust line. And there we go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get this pinned back into place so you can see this opening and where things are. But you can clearly see how much we need it to open this baby out. There. I'm not pulling this at all right now. I just want that area nice and straight, lining it smooth. So now what I'm going to do here, my side seam's there, and I am going to pull this just a little because I still like that, having that little bit of snugness when it comes to a knit. I've had some knits before that were like just too much room. To me, it was too baggy. And I like, with a knit, one of the things I love is the fact that it conforms to your shape. Do that there. And you can see that now there's like about a 3/4 of an inch difference here because our bust, when it's rounded, takes up that extra space. If we were flat like a box, we'd be good. It'd be so much easier. And that's how much I would even need to take out just on the one side. That's how much tighter this is. All right, let's get this over here. I'm going to just smooth out my side seam. This is where I wish my thing didn't move so much. Give this a little snap, just a little. There, get in. Doesn't help when you get a dud pin. Actually, I'm going to pull that over a little. There. I think I've pulled that down too much, which is fine. You can see I'm going to make sure this stays smooth because I want this nice and straight, hanging straight down. Moving this over. So I have a little bit of give there, and oh, I know, I got my bra in there for that. The bra's in there, so it's a little snugger to get done. All right, and get in there, get in there. All right, that's my one side, see, there. And now that side's there, and let's do now with this piece. Smooth that over, don't want pulling too much. A bit. See how it varies in my waist here. See how that goes in, just that little bit more here, and sure she's straight. Put that in, and then here. And I'm just going to do that there. All right. And now this is what we're going to be, how much we would really need to open up that dress. And you can see, if this was a paper pattern, we would be cutting and slashing our pattern. Sometimes when we do our cut and slash, you'll notice that it's going to adjust our length. And then of course, we're just going to smooth that out. Because once again, take the extra material that's required to go over our bust, takes up extra length. So we would just make sure that we add or subtract the length and then cut it straight across. But that looks very nice. And we're getting a nice hang. See how it's hanging nice and straight down? Let's do the same on the other side. And to be honest, if you really wanted to, you could, oh, I hate when that happens. You could just still do 1/2, and then we could duplicate that pattern and flip it out. I'm still going to show you though on this side how it would look. And when I do my pattern, I probably will do it 1/2 and 1/2 on paper first. So I get, perfect paper here, and then I'll just flip it over for the other side. But for now, I think I will do the other side so you can kind of see how much more we're going to be opening that up. And same thing, we're going to start right here and cut straight up. This is where, or almost like where the princess seam would be. It's usually half the distance from here to here, or usually about 4 inches, 4.5 inches from the center. So now, it's amazing how even just doing that, now we still have more coming out. All right, yeah. Maybe before I cut the rest of that, I'll do some pinning so it's not hanging so much. That there, go there. Now this little bit here, you can see there's a little bit of extra fabric in here. It's going to get blended in when we tape this up because it's kind of stretched out. It has been a garment that's worn. When even if like there was like a little dart sort of thing in there and pin that out, that's still going to be fine because when I cut this out of a knit, that excess is going to be removed and it's going to fit perfectly smooth along here. When I talk with other sewers, they will mention things like that they don't like knits and they're afraid of knits. I find knits to be really easy to work with, and I love them also because of the fit. It gives me good fit. It's very forgiving. I'm over too far, right? And do the same. We're going to cut right up to my shoulder to expand that area. And let's do that other cut then to here and here, cut here, across the bust, to the side seam, and then straight across. Here. And nail, continue pinning. There we go. That in. I like also, if it's gaping in here, I like pinning that right up because I want to make sure it's not going to be gaping and having excess over my bust. I'm going to pull this over just a little, give it a little bit of a give, a little bit of stretch, put that in place. This is where I wish I had someone to help me hold my mannequin so it's not moving around. Another reason there is a little bit of extra in this length, when the dress was originally on, and see how we've opened this area out here, that's about, well, here it's about an inch. That extra inch is coming down into my waist, and we don't necessarily want to, it doesn't, this excess needs to go away. So that this opened up, then do need that extra inch in my bust, but it's going to push down the fabric and make this longer. I don't need extra in my waist. I am short-waisted, so that's why here, this is just going to get pinned out, and but that's why we have that little bit extra right here, because we did add extra space in here. Okay, let's here and continue pinning her. Pull this over just a little bit here, and there is a difference here to here, but it's just, that's just my cutting. It has nothing to do with the pattern itself. I just didn't cut the same distance, the exact same. That's okay. That's just, this is just for us to see where things are going. I didn't have a lot of extra here, so I want to make sure I do the same for here. I don't necessarily want to have it too much like that. This did come up like that, so I'm going to do the same for both sides. And there. You're probably thinking, what are we going to do with this next? And here. When I pin this area, what I want to make sure is that my armhole is on my natural armhole. This arm is way too small anyway, so I will be adding width to my armhole, my arm pattern. The length is great. It's actually not too bad here too. I think when I put it on, yeah, that goes to my, this end right here. So that width is perfect. It's just way too narrow in here. We are going to expand that by cutting the center of our sleeve, because I do want to maintain, I'm going to reshape that a little bit, but we want to maintain most of our sleeve. I just need to add extra up here because it's way too narrow. I don't like when it's really flat against my shoulders. It's just a personal thing. That's the great thing about making things for yourself. You can have it fit just the way you want. I want that right on my shoulder, and let's open that out that little bit. Pin this into place. Now I want to address something I'm noticing here. You will see how we tend to have more space here than we do here. And the reason that is once again, because this is cut on a bias. So there is different stretch here than there is on this side. It's going to react a little different. If you've ever tried hemming a circle skirt, and as you're doing your hem, some areas hold up really nice and some areas will be a little bit more challenging to get in. And it's primarily because of the bias cut. And that's what's happening here. This side is just falling a little different. So what I'll probably end up doing, which side do we want to do? Not exactly sure which one we will keep, but when I do cut my pattern, I will fold it in half and make half and half so they're both the same. And then I'll open it out and lie it on my material when it's time to cut. So I just want to make sure we're getting the same stretch and everything. But and another way you can see is this is nice and straight, but this side is a little wavy. This one's straighter, and it's because of the fabric coming up that way. We're getting a little bit different look, and it's pulling more. And I think it's just because of the way the fabric is. So that's fine. I just want to get a good base for my pattern. So let me see. Do I want to open that one up there or not? Not sure yet. Maybe I'll open that up just a little bit and then put that excess in there. Okay, we'll kind of meet halfway in the middle. I'll do half and half. What I'll do too is when I do put this together and the finished, if there's any other adjustments or anything that I will make sure you know about, I will make sure they're put in the website. So you have everything that I've learned. Once again, remember, because this is opening and coming down, I have excess here. I'm just going to pin that out just like that and make sure it's nice and smooth and put a pin in. Pin in it. Okay, don't like the way that one's pulling there. There we go. All right. So now what we're going to do is take our tape, and I'm hoping the tape's going to work. I am going to tape to fill in this, and fingers crossed, it's going to stick. If not, I might have to add a little bit of pins to hold my tape. But one thing I do want to show you now, let's undo my neckline. I want to show you now how the neckline we can have open, but it's not going to be so revealing. We don't need it that revealing. Some people may, I do not. I would probably have my top open that much because my bust is like right here. So this is as far as I would probably have mine open. And you see now how that opens up, but without the va-va-voom we had earlier. That's what we're going to want. I just release that little, see how that's fitting there. Give myself a little bit more in here then. Perfect. All right, let's do our taping without being too loud. All right, start with our back. If I had put some material in behind here, then I just have to kind of pin it all to it, and you can do it that way. I'm going to try this way first. I always have to do it my way first. Right over top of my pans. I'll have to get those out after. And down here, you can see, I'll just bring that down. Scissors. I'm going to make sure it's falling nice. Oh, okay. It's just enough to give me an idea of where my new pattern is being cut. There, cut that there. We're making part of our skirt out of tape. And I'm going to, while I'm down here, I'm going to work here and do some more straight up and down. Because mind you, we know the tape doesn't stretch. It's just mainly to fill this in for us. I apologize if it's a little loud, so I don't know what else to do. There. One more little piece here. There. Isn't that crazy? How much we fill that in there? But that's going to give us our nice little, how it's going to hang nice and straight. That's what we want. All right, up we go. Continue our back. Filling it in. I use lots of packing tape. I use packing tape for lots of things. I'm going to add a little bit more here because the last thing I want is to try and take this off and then have it start pulling apart, and then I've lost my my line. So a little bit there, and then I'll do here a little bit on that side. What we may do as well is we're not necessarily going to be pulling this up and over her head because it could all come apart, and I don't want this area coming apart yet. This is where you can actually cut it off. We are actually going to cut down her side seams when it's time. That's going to allow us to almost take the whole pattern, the whole dress right off of her, and we're going to have our pattern pieces already. That's the back. There she be. Now we're going to do the front just the same. Get our collar out of the way, and let's start at our shoulders. So I'm just going to fit the bust. I'm just going to pull her down and to there. There. Same thing, since there's only a little bit of fabric here, I want to make sure it doesn't pop out. So I'm going to just add a little extra, bring this across, or fill in this area. I've done this particular technique for many a knit shirt. Often I just want a really nice shirt like this, just black, simple, fitted. And when I find one at the store, it fits, but it's always really tight in my bust. But if I love the pattern, I love the fit, I'll do this exact thing to it, and then it'll open out just the right amount. And then I know when I take her apart and put her back together, or like that, use it as a pattern, then I'm confident that I'm going to have a really good fit knit. And if you have some really good black, white, gray, neutral t-shirts, they're going to be staples in your wardrobe. Occasionally I'll see a woman, usually an older woman, and I'm looking at her wardrobe and I think, how come she looks so good in that t-shirt? It's just a t-shirt. It's probably a well-fitting t-shirt made of good material that fits her very well, and that is why I love casual wear. I just want to make sure it's going to look good on me. All right, let's do our other side, fill it in, and then we'll take this off. See what she looks like. Smooth it over. Make sure that's in there. If you have to cut a hole in your dress, don't worry about it because we're not keeping it anyways, right? This is just our pattern. Accidentally cut something. There. I have a little hole here. I have to fix it. Patch it up. There we go. And I'm going to do one more along here and then fill that area in. Stuck on my finger. There we go. I just want to make sure this doesn't lift up. And I'm going to fill this little area in that I slashed with my tape, make it a little bit more stable when we cut this up. All right. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take out the rest of these pins here. These pins will stay in for now. I'm going to have to keep them mentally taped over them, so that's fine. But I didn't want to take them out because then they would, all my material that I had, kind of pulled to get that little knit stretch would fall back into the old shape, and I don't want that yet. But we'll do up our pattern piece. Okay, first thing we're going to do then, I am going to make my armhole a little bit bigger than this. So I know we cut here. This is my underarm, or like my bust point. I'm going to bring this armhole down a little bit more. And that is just something I'm going to keep in mind. I can always draw it on using some chalk, because I do need a little bit bigger of an armhole than what we have here. So I can draw this on my mannequin. I do know that where this area is falling right on my seam, where my body. I know that's perfect. So I'm just going to do a little sketch in here with some chalk. That's where my new armhole is going to be extended. Because when I cut and slash up here to give me some more width, it's going to make the whole armhole a little bit, the arm size bigger. So I'm going to need to have some room to put that in, and that's where that's going to go there. And once I have this cut on here, I'll be doing the same with the underarm, like that. So it's just, don't make things more complicated than what they are. I'm going to cut my sleeve out right now because I don't care about the one. I want to make sure I keep one of my sleeves for my pattern, overall pattern. But this one I'm not going to worry so much about here. I'm going to just cut that one right out. So you can see what our bodice piece is going to look like. So I'm actually going to cut directly on the line where my seam would be, and I will add my seam allowance when I cut that out. I'm going to cut straight up on my side seams first. Some pins in here. There we go. And let's cut straight up the side seam. An extra pin. And this will open out a little bit, because remember I did want a little bit snug. I can take that pin out there. I'm going to cut up to my new armhole. So now I'm going to cut around my armhole. I know I just need to cut that there. And I'm cutting right on their original arm seam. Okay. Sorry, cutting sideways. All right. I want you to see where my new armhole is going to be. See, now that's going to be my new armhole. This is going to be all joined just like that. But that's my new armhole, just a little bit bigger. Just need a little bit more than what was there. That's done. I'm going to probably just do half the dress. I'm not going to do both sides. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to cut my dress left and right, or front and back, right down the center. Yeah, I'll just do that, because it's actually going to be a lot easier. You don't necessarily need to cut both sides separately. You always want to have it symmetrical. I'm going to cut straight up my dress. I'm not concerned about the placket detailing here, because I don't need to take that off or anything. What I need to know is, I do know this goes right down the center. It's actually folded right here. That's the center fold. Then it's opened out here for this placket. And I'm just going to be cutting new pieces from my material, measured this width, double it, add seam allowances to put a new placket on. So, and I actually might, not sure, even put a zipper in there as opposed to that. The great thing about making something for yourself is you can design it however you want. Straight down, straight up. I can see my center seam now. So I'm just going to cut straight up. I know this is going to go right in the center of my placket. Undo this. And I'm just going to give this a big snip right here. And there, that's my one half of my front. Do the same with the back, straight up the middle. I can see this easily now, so I'm just going to start here. It's not my best cutting job because it's sticking. If this was sticking a lot, get a little bit of powder. If that was bothering you enough, I would get powder and put some powder on it. I think I actually have powder, because this is going to start sticking and it's going to get kind of annoying. I don't want it sticking and then pulling away. So if I use a little bit of powder, put some powder, it's a little messy, but it works. It's kind of tearing more than I want, so I want it to go right up here, up to my center seam. This helps you see that not everything I do works out either. And that silly tape, oh dear, that tape's going to be a problem. Oh well, my center seam, my center is going to come right up with this, so I'm just going to use that as my line. Let's just do that. Oh dear. Pin out, up we go. I'd always just be more concerned I'm not going to be cutting my fabric, my dress form fabric. I just had a brainstorm, probably should have put something along here like some other sort of maybe tissue paper. Note to self, next time I do this, use tissue paper on there. What we'll do with this, see how this side's kind of crappy? We're going to use the good side. That's going to be my good back. The one that's tearing more, I'm going to ditch and keep the good one. See, we work with what we got. Yeah, because that's tearing more there, so that's fine. And I'm going to cut right up to my collar. All right, so this side, no good. So I'm not worried about that because, and I guess my tape's coming off, oh dear. But other than that, that's going to be the bad side. This is the side we want to keep for a good pattern. So I'm going to make sure we add our powder to that so it doesn't go all crappy. There we go. You can tuck your tips of any pins that are poking out away. That'll be good. There we go. All right. So now, since I'm keeping this back piece, yeah, that armhole is different. So I'm going to cut up here, right up the side seam, and I'll salvage that as my back piece. I'll use the armhole shaping from that. If there's one thing you take away when we do things like this, don't get all stressed. We can always work something out. It's only fabric, it's only fashion, it's only clothes. I'm just going to cut up, and I know my armhole's probably here now. The reason I want to redo this for you, I want to cut this collar off at some point too, so you can see the how we're going to do that. I will get that cut off. There we go. So I will use this sleeve as my pattern when it's time. To get the extra width, I'll probably just cut straight down the middle like that. And when I lay my pattern piece out, I'll be opening that up just to get the extra width that I want. But take our back piece off now. I want to get this out. So what I'm going to do with some of these pins that are sticking out here underneath, remember I said I might want to make sure that these are, I don't want the tape coming off. Then that's what I'm going to do with those, is just tuck those in. Oh dear, so much for my beautiful black lines. At least you got to see them earlier. I'm going to cut straight up my shoulder seam here. My shoulder seam. There we go. See, she's taller than I am. And what I'm going to do also, I'm going to cut my collar right off and just right where that seam is. And that's how I'm going to use this collar as my collar piece. When you open it up inside, you'll also see what interfacing they've used, which is going to help you to know what you're going to use for yours, doubled, or what the thickness is. Let's get that done. This is our back piece. When we do lay this onto our knit, we know that this is my full width and everything. And if we cut this out, I'm going to nice and clean that up. I'll probably make this out of paper for a paper pattern because I will want to reuse it. So I'm going to make a nice center seam, add my seam allowances, but that's my back piece, center back. And let's continue cutting off my collar here so I can show you that. I had a student once who would actually take everything all apart and do the seams and everything. That's just a lot of work. Then by the time you're done, I don't even want to do the pattern piece. So I just cut it out, then I just draw it on my paper and add my seam allowances. Once again, you can design it any way you'd like, but the lines on here, if you want to do it in the same direction, that's going to be like your grain line. Have them going in that same direction. Side was I keeping? That one, yes. So for this one, I'm going to do the same. I'll just cut out my shoulder here, straight across. That part's down. Oh well, I'll let you know what I do with my lines eventually so I can share with you a better way than obviously what I had done. Now I'm going to slowly lift this up. This out. My pins are in there. I just want to make sure that my dress material doesn't pull away from my tape. Oh, you silly tape. That's okay. We're just going to get rid of that. You can go over here for now. And this is my front. I'm going to add tape, my powder to that, because I want to show you what this is going to look like when it's nice and flattened out. See if I can do this without hurting myself with the pins too that are poking up. If I had tissue paper, that actually would have been nice too to put along here, but I didn't think about that till now, but I will for future. Then the tissue paper would be sticking to this. All right, and now that is my front. This will be on a fold. So this will be my fold along this seam. Lay this on my material appropriately. I will make a pattern piece out of paper, but then now I have a pattern piece that will fit me. Well, that's as much as we're doing for today. Now that I've made it a big mess, I just want to thank everyone who was here to watch this and anyone who's going to be watching later. I hope you learned a little bit of how we can use our dress form, especially if they're made custom to you. That's going to help you with clothing, whether it's something too small, something too big, whether we're even just doing some draping. I did have some material just random that I had. Oh, 4 lines. Having your dress form, so she's ready to go, you can take material, and when we're doing draping, let's say this, and I wanted to make something that's going to flip over her side, I pin my material into place. She's going to fit the curves of the body the way I want. Let's say here to here. And depending on what you're making, then once you've got all this on, and let's say you want to cut your side seams, then you pin everything into the place you want, and then you use your side seams, which will stay on better than mine, to make something. And like I said, if I see it on her, I know, like, wow, that looks great. I love the looks of that. I know I'm going to like it on myself. And that's the number one reason why I love having my custom dress form. It just allows me to make some clothing that I know I'm going to love. Thank you for joining me once again. I hope you learned a lot. And then also, if you have any questions or any feedback, I'd love for you to put them in the comments. I will answer them. If there's anything particular you'd love to see, make sure you leave them in the comments as well. That helps me to plan what to do. Otherwise, I really have to think. Have a great couple of weeks, and I hope you learned something. April Jackson, Jackson Sewing Academy. Thank you.